very pleased with myself today because I've managed to get somewhere that I can actually go for a walk. Although it will be a very short walk because it's about 10 o'clock here and it's absolutely roasting, about 30 degrees already, and I'm really not used to the temperature. Even the stray dogs seem to be struggling. Hey buddy. If there's one thing to slow you down, it's being somewhere where it's just so hot that rapid movement is impractical, at least for someone who's used to a more temperate climate like me. I managed to find a nice park at the top of the city and visited one of the Buddhist shrines here. And for those of you who haven't explored much of Thailand before, it's a predominantly Buddhist country, and funnily enough the only book I brought out with me here is a translation of one of the well-known Buddhist texts, which is called the Dhammapada, which is said to be some of the very concise teachings of the Buddha. And I don't consider myself to be a Buddhist or to be religious in any sense of the word, but I follow many of the guidance, the guides set out by spiritual teachings and religious teachings, whether they're contemporary or modern. Not because I feel like it has to necessarily lead me anywhere, but when you read enough of these books from various sources and various times of history, you start to see commonalities, and it's interesting that there are many commonalities amongst these teachings. Silence being one of them. As I mentioned on my last video, I've been not just adapting to the culture and the climate, but also the circumstances that I find my dad in here in hospital. He's thankfully stabilising slightly, which is good news. And again, I shan't go into that because that's not necessarily what I perceive to be the value here, but let's just say it's nice. There's a saying I had recently. It's attributed to Tony Robbins. I'm sure it maybe has come from others too. It's I've walked down a dead end. Life is not happening to us, it's happening for us. Everything here is happening for our benefit. It may be the case in the moment that we're not able to see that, but the invitation is to see the situation that each and every one of us find ourselves in as an invitation. To what? Well, that's not for me to say, but for me personally, it seems to me that whilst in here I may not necessarily want to consciously choose to put myself in these conditions. In other words, if I was going on holiday, this may not be the first place I would choose. But at another level, something in here wants me to be here. And often it's the misalignment between the two that causes us to suffer, because we either want to have control over things, and we find out most of the time that we don't, or we want to just completely relinquish control, and then we find out that a lot of things happen that aren't really in our best interest. And I've tried both of those approaches, but the middle path, or the middle way, as it's put in the Buddhist texts, is a very difficult balance to achieve, and one I'm constantly striving for, because it involves conscious use of intention and mind, but with the knowledge that mind is not absolute, that there is something behind that which perceives it. And so whilst the mind has its use, and we can use the mind, focus the mind in particular areas, we also have to remember that life does not comprise entirely of mental concepts. And from time to time we have to let go of these things, as difficult as it may seem. Squirrel? That's a very small squirrel. This is why I'm not a wildlife vlog maker. So we have to make reference. We have to, I don't want to say remember, because it's not quite how that works, but let's say for as long as we take ourselves to be nothing but mind, life is a continual movement of up and down, and it seems like a struggle because emotion is by nature unstable. I mean, for any of you out there who are living in the idea or have been sold on the idea that life can be this never-ending happy passage, and as long as you're looking to emotion for happiness, you'll be disappointed, because emotion it's energy in motion. So motion supposes that it's constantly moving, and we have to allow it to move, because when it gets stuck, it gets trapped in the body, and then we start to find ourselves feeling stuck in a variety of ways. But society would have us believe that happiness can be bought, when in fact it's the result of removing the desire for happiness, which kind of sounds like a paradox, but peace is a reductive process. Joy and happiness and love and all of the things we truly seek in their real forms are those things which result from the absence of expectation, from the absence of desire, from the absence of a story that says whatever is happening in front of me in this moment is not the thing I want, and therefore I am a victim of some description. And if you feel like that, then I'm not saying that to make you feel bad, like it's not your fault. And it's not. No one out there who suffers is suffering consciously. No one would choose consciously to suffer over being peaceful. It's simply a product of our conditioning and our experiences and what we've been led to believe and taught is true by the well-meaning people around us. So even though the things I'm saying may be contrary to that, and perhaps they may feel counterintuitive, I'm not here to tell you that you should follow any of the stuff that I say. I'm just here to offer an alternative perspective. And if that perspective helps you gain some relief from the way that you currently see things, if it helps you to create some distance between something which seems very real and permanent to a sufficient degree that it doesn't seem real and permanent, then I feel there's an immense amount of value in that, and that's not to be overlooked or overstated. In the Bible, again, I'm not saying this from a religious perspective, just another form of teaching that one has access to in the Western world. They talk about the peace that passes beyond all understanding. And I'm sure it says this in in other holy books also. And the peace that passes beyond all understanding is the peace that cannot be attained by this, because peace of mind is absence of mind. It's when the mind is quiet, or when one recognizes that their nature is beyond that. And I'll do my best to expand on that as time goes on, but what I would encourage you to do, if it doesn't make sense up here, is to try and listen with this. Because life is a felt experience, and thought kind of is a moderator. We have a feeling, and then thought says, oh yeah, that's not good, I don't like that one. Can we change it? Can we go somewhere else? Whereas when we acknowledge the felt experience of life, it doesn't really matter what the story is. The feeling is the feeling, and if we accept the feeling for what it is in the moment, it will pass. And if you feel some degree of resonance with that, if you feel intuitively that that makes sense to you, then I'd encourage you to lean into that and to continue to do so as long as you can. And that's why it's impossible to put these things into steps or processes, as much as my mind would love to do that, because that's how it works. A feeling is not a process. A feeling is a completely organic, arising. And it comes and it goes. And the less attached we are to feeling one particular way, and the less averse we are to feeling a different particular way, the more that feelings can come and go, and the more that they do that, in fact, the more stable they become, because it's our desire to hold on to, as I believe it says in the Dhammapada, because I've been reading it recently, suffering is the grasping for pleasure and the aversion from pain. And if you're in pain, then of course that may not necessarily make sense, nor would I expect it to in this moment. But we suffer because we want to always feel good, and we never want to feel bad. But part of life is to accept that bad feelings or emotions which are less enjoyable, let's say, they're inevitable, and we don't have to fear them, because they won't kill us. An emotion cannot kill us. It can be very powerful, and our mind can interpret it in such a way that causes us to act in such a way that creates harm for us and those around us. But the emotion in and of itself, stripped away of all meaning, has no power. And I'm still learning that one. You know, I'm not saying this from a position of, well, I've figured it all out, but I'm in constant inquiry. And that's why this work is so important to me. It's why it's so important to me to help other people, because, well, I don't expect you to do that. And that's why we turn to the internet to look for people to provide us with guidance, because we don't necessarily know where to start. And I'm the same in many ways. And why wouldn't we take advantage of that? Because it's really helpful. So anyway, I think that's enough for today. I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole of the more expansive stuff right now, although it's valuable for me as well. But I'm coming to see that life has brought me here, or I have brought myself here unknowingly, to learn something. And maybe that being in a country that I don't speak the language and find it very hard to get around and is very unfamiliar, and as I said, wouldn't be my first choice, it's bringing up all of these preferences, all of this aversion to discomfort that I'm having to face, including being extremely hot, especially in this moment. So I'm going to lean into that, whilst also simultaneously doing my best to maintain space for myself and care for my dad to the best of my ability. So I hope there's value in some of those words, and if there is, then again, please let the machine know that stands between us, because that machine has no idea really what I'm saying. All it cares about is whether or not you find it valuable, and if you let it know, then it shares the same thing to more people, which seems to be working reasonably well. So for all of you that have joined the channel recently, I really appreciate all of your comments and your engagement and your interaction. It means a lot to me in many ways, and also is providing me immense amounts of value, because I'm finding a tremendous amount of value in watching these things back and getting real-time feedback. So I appreciate that. And until I see you next, I wish you all well. Thanks for watching.